Good morning and live from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. This is Sports Talk USSA. We're getting into football season, and one of the things that everyone seems to be concerned with is polls and so forth. But here at the Academy, we're going into our 10th year of awarding the Game of the Year award as part of the Awards of Sports series. This morning's panel consists of Dr. Brett Zimmermacher, who is our Chair of Sports Coaching, and of course Dr. Fred Cromartie, who is the Director of Doctoral Studies. I'm Dr. Arthur Ogden, your moderator and Chair of Sports Management. Since 2005, when we began this program to recognize the top game of the year for FBS college football, the Academy's 2005 Sport Artist of the Year, Daniel Moore, who is really world-renowned for his portrayals of action shots in college sports, paints a portrait of the outstanding play. And along with that, the Academy awards the winning institution a $5,000 scholarship. So we're going to review some of the past victories and some of the past winners as we begin our wrap up our first decade and begin our second decade. But it is the second year of the college football playoff era.
I'd like to point out those.
So Dr. Cromartie, why don't you reflect for us what game you think sticks out most in your mind?
Well, having been a part of the committee in that, I'm going to say that all of them kind of stick out because it's one of the nice things that being a member of that committee is to be able to sit down on a Saturday or a weekend, and sometimes nowadays it's Tuesday, Thursday, whatever day of the week it is, and watch these games and come in and be able to provide my choices to the committee so that they can make a decision each and every week in that. And but some of them that stand out, I would have to say, Texas Tech game, Appalachian State, they had some outstanding plays in those games, and it was, it's been recognized by Daniel Moore. What I wanted to point out, though, that for folks in the audience out there that would like to take a look at some of Daniel Moore's work, I'd suggest that they go on our website so they can see the College Game of the Year photos and that and prints and everything, and then they'll get an idea of just what we're talking about for this 10-year span of what incredible work that he has done and the incredible work that the committee has done in making that decision each and every week about the game of the week that leads up to the game of the year.
Yeah, that's on the ASAMA link, ASAMA link for the Academy's website. Now, I know that Dr. Zimmermacher is new to this whole process, and you've had a chance to take a look at the material and digest it. Give us a few of your impressions, if you would, please.
Well, I think it's number one. I think it's a great thing that the Academy came up with. I'm elated to be part of the committee. I think it's a great thing for college football. The one that stands out the biggest to me is Appalachian State and the degree of the upset of them over Michigan in the Big House.
Right, at the time, too, though, Appy State was ranked #1 in FCS.
Correct.
And the Wolverines were ranked #5 in FBS.
Right.
So, and they were actually ahead 21-7 in the third quarter.
Right.
And I remember because I was downstairs working with the then Dean. We were working on some of the reaffirmation of accreditation. And every once in a while, I'd walk down the hall to Applin's office, who's the dean there, and say, "You know what? Appy State is winning." What? You're going to hear it on the radio. And boy, when that got over. But the really strange thing is, 2 years ago, my dear friend Terry Bowden took his Akron team into Michigan and lost to Michigan on the last play of the game. The ball was just batted down. That would have been the end of Brady Hope. 2 years ago. But it just seems to me that there's something about it, and well, who knows? Maybe Harbaugh will turn it around this year. But we take a look at some of the other winners. The first one was Rutgers over Louisville. Now, Louisville was ranked number 3 at the time. This was in 2006. Louisville was ranked number 3 at the time, and Rutgers was ranked number 15 or 16, depending upon the poll. And Rutgers beat them 28-25. And then you take a look at Alabama in 2009, when Alabama beat Florida for the national championship. That they always stick out. And then Auburn's win over Oregon for the national championship. And then we come back to 2011, which was the repeat of the LSU Alabama game, and everybody's, oh, you can't have them do that. And it was literally a beatdown, 21-0, and it was something else. And then year after that, Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel, goes into Tuscaloosa and beats Alabama, who was ranked number 1 at the time, 29-24. Sent shockwaves. And then 2013, we had the kick 6. And of course, last year we had Ohio State, the first winner in the playoff era, defeating Oregon, and Oregon did even more on the field with them. I mean, plainly and simply, Oregon State. I mean, Oregon was just outclassed. But tell me a little about what games you look for this year that might be up in that category, Dr. Camarda.
Well, it's not specific games, and I think we need to pay attention because we've been saying forever and ever that there's such parity within college football.
Right, it was 25
I think we need to take a look at the conferences because the SEC's got the East and the West, and everybody gets a chance to play each other and that. But we've got to go even further because you've got the Big 12, and they've got it split up with their schools. You've got the Pac-12.
No, the Big 12 does not split up. The Big 12 has their one true champion. They don't have.
They have the one true champion,
they don't have a playoff.
No playoff in that, but it's still split. There's several schools that play in this division, several schools that play in that division within it, and then that's the way it boils down to. But I think what's interesting is that we're going to have to start to see, because remember, the big push now is to have so-called the Power 5 conference. So we got to pay attention to that. Those power institutions are positioning themselves to move into that realm even further, and if they get there, that's going to be a real situation that we're going to have to contend with in terms of overall college football, because the small guys, we're not going to get any more Appalachian States.
Yeah,
we're not going to get any more Rutgers.
You're not going to have too many more Indianas in the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten. But somebody was making a point the other day that I thought was really, really valid. They were talking about, Missouri's made it to the championship game. Missouri, who have they played from the West? Nobody. They haven't played Alabama. They haven't played Auburn. They haven't played Texas A&M. They haven't played anybody tough from the West.
But who's been the powerhouse supposed to run the East? Who's supposed to do that? Georgia.
Well, Georgia.
And they haven't done it.
Actually, Georgia and South Carolina.
Yeah.
The point is, when you can avoid those tough teams in the West, which Missouri has done, and it's no fault of their own.
Yeah.
But they lose to Indiana, and then all of a sudden, Georgia does what Georgia always does. Georgia's going to find a way to lose the games they're not supposed to lose, and they're going to win the games they're not supposed to win. I mean, it's a strange combination. And when you have that kind of mixture you're talking about with the Power 5 conferences, there's going to have to be something has got to change, I think. And for my money, it's going to be to expand it to 8 teams. And I know everybody says, oh, no, you can't. Every time that there's a change or something like that, the guys who played with a piece of leather across their face, the integrity of the game. I'm so sick and tired of hearing these guys talk about the integrity of the game, and they've been exploiting it from time immemorial. But if we take a look at the fact that we're giving a $5,000 scholarship, may not be a lot of money. It is kind of a token in today's overall financial situation. It is significant and important.
Every bit helps.
Every little bit helps with all the changes that are going on within an athletic department.
By the way, he was on a baseball scholarship at South Alabama. Have you seen their schedule this year in football?
Very good.
Nebraska,
Yep.
North Carolina State.
North Carolina State. They got Navy coming in again. I mean, they're stepping it up.
But see, within the next several years, this is part of the problem with the big conferences. They're trying to phase that out, where some of the smaller schools right now building programs can still make that windfall. They get that money, and the Power Five is saying eventually, 2-3 years down the road, we want to be away from that. You've got to play each other, and that pot of gold is our pot of gold.
Right. And then there's some validity to that too. But if they do not let them in, then there will be more problems than they think, and there may even be a fourth NCAA division. You see, because you've got the mid-majors, the MAC schools, and so forth. And I was reading an article about Utah and Boise State have finally broken in. Boise State, I think, is still independent, but Utah now is in the Pac-12.
In the Pac-12,
Right.
yes.
And so they've got a real opportunity. And we can talk about the relative strengths of the conferences and so forth. And, I know there's an awful lot of SEC fatigue. But when you take a look at the NFL drafts and how many SEC ball players are drafted in the first 2 rounds and how many SEC ball players are in the NFL, I mean, it speaks volumes. Phil Savage, who was a local boy, he played at Murphy High School, and then he went to University of South Sewanee and started. He was a graduate assistant for us. We ran the Bowden Academy, and then he was a graduate assistant at Alabama with Homer Smith. And he finally moved up, and he was with that Village bunch when they were in Cleveland. And he eventually worked his way up through player personnel and so forth, got with the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome. And then he became a GM for the Browns. Well, that didn't work out too well. So now he is the executive director for the Senior Bowl. And good, he lives right down here in Fairhope. And he will tell you everywhere he goes. He said, I may seem prejudiced because I'm from, the SEC country. He says, but when I go look at the other team's players, there's no comparison. I mean, they're bigger, better, faster, stronger.
That was one of the things that was mentioned. We talk about preseason football in the NFL, and nobody really wants to watch it. But I was watching last Thursday when they had the game on, and one of the announcers said, it seems like there's a kid from Alabama on it, or that's one of the pro teams.
Right.
So that speaks volumes for the SEC, the state of Alabama. And then if you look at it, a lot of those guys that are on teams are from Mobile and the surrounding area.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the reasons South Alabama said, hey, wait a minute, we can keep these guys on. Who was that running back at Nebraska? Amir?
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alabama kid.
Yeah.
And, of course, famous Jameis Winston, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Alabama ball players. It's like my home state's Florida. And, there's a wealth of dearth of talent down there. I mean, just all over the place in every sport, baseball and everything. And there was a time in the 90s, 80s and the 90s, when the national championship always went to the state of Florida. Miami, Florida, Florida State.
Yep.
That shifted now, from my perspective, to the Iron Bowl. I mean, it's very, very serious. When you think about the winner of the Iron Bowl for the last 8 years has had some degree of participation in the national championship, either game or program.
Well, for a couple of years running there, it was either Alabama or Auburn that were winners.
That's right.
So that was a beauty.
Now this is okay. It's your turn.
Yeah.
Auburn, it's your turn. It's really, really quite something. Well, listen, we're all looking forward to this season. Games actually start next Thursday night. On the headline of next Thursday night's games, September 3rd, is North Carolina at South Carolina. Now, it's going to be an interesting season, I think, for the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier. A lot of people are getting on his case, but he's a young man. I mean, he's young as I am. He's 70 years old, and he still gets out there and gets after it. So we'll see what happens. And then, of course, Texas A&M came in and kind of rubbed their face in it last year. And Kenny Trill didn't last very long. Where did he transfer to? The quarterback from A&M.
I don't recall where he transferred to. But
He transferred. He's out of there.
Kenny the Thrill.
Yeah, he's gone. So it'll be another interesting season. A lot of good talent, a lot of good opportunities. We hope you enjoy this year's football season as much as we're going to enjoy naming the game of the week each week. And at the end of the year, we select the game of the year. And just to mention a few of the members of the committee, the chairman is Mr. Jack Langwell. Some of you may know him from that movie called We Are Marshall. He was played by
Matthew
McConaughey. And we've got people like Ron Dickerson Jr., who was the first major college black head football coach. It was at Temple University. Of course, there's Vince Dooley, famous from Georgia, Mike Lewis, former AD at Washington and interim AD at Auburn, Dave Maggard, who was former AD at Cal Berkeley. We just added Coach Bob Pruitt, who won quite a bit of notoriety as coach at Marshall, won the 1AA championship in 1996, and then in 97 and 98 was the MAC Coach of the Year. Dr. Richard Young, who's the former AD at Oklahoma State and Washington State, and Roger Baldessari, a good friend of mine, who's now the retired Associate AD for Communications at Notre Dame. So we wish you all a very wonderful football season. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your contributions to Sports Talk USSA at ussa.edu and your suggestions. So see you again next week. And for Dr. Cromartie and Dr. Schimmelmacher, have a great day in sport.